Going? Okay. Would you this for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Chair here, so yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. All right. With that, I'm going to call the Town of Damariscotta Board of Assessors meeting of July 19th to order. We are absent two members this evening, Dan Hunter and Andrea Iskarian. They'll be back for next meeting. So with that, we can get right into it. I think we have a guest here that wants to present. Yeah. We'll make you state your name and be all official in the mic there. So okay.
Rob Duplessis, assessment agent.
How's it going, Rob?
I'm good. We got I think some good numbers here. The last time I met with the board, you were instructing me to come up with a factor to apply to all the taxable value and property to try to get it closer to current. So we looked at the state valuation last time and looked at what the ratio was at, and our two ratios are waterfront ratio and our residential ratio were both at like 78 and 79%. So in order to certify to the state of Maine that we are at 100% of market value, we need to inflate those ratios to a point where we're at 91% or better. It's just the way the state looks at homestead reimbursement. We don't have to be at 100 to declare 100. We have to be within 10%. So I sat down and looked at all the sales. Well, actually, I started off looking at every sale leading up until April 1st of this year. The state's version of valuation is it's a step back in time a little bit. So after looking at the most recent sales and looking at our focus here to get something closer to 100, I really worked on the sales ratio study that the state did. So to get us to that 91% number, I went in and took every assessment on the real estate side and inflated it by 19%. That mathematically got me to that 91% that we wanted. So, and that's an easy task. You go in and just change the tables that our software vendor has. What you'll see from the mill rate calculation sheets in front of you, it doesn't mean that everything went up by 19%. Personal property comes into us every year at 100% full value from all the declarants, and we have to only depreciate that number down by our ratio, which was 91%. So that's only a 9% gain in value personal property. Same way with the homestead. We're playing the homestead dance with the state, how they want these numbers arrived at to be able to give the full 25,000. Last year, even though our numbers were actually in the high 70s, we were able to give 21,250 per homestead. Again, only a 9% decrease in full. So when you move those three components of your assessment up to what we're going to consider full, real estate went up 19, personal and homestead went up 9. So the overall taxable amount in town isn't quite up the whole 19, but it's up. I think, Andy, give me a number of 17.
17.57
17.
on a taxable value. Yeah.
So with that, even with, I looked at some growth before I changed. I kind of like did two commitments. I did a normal commitment and then I decided what the factor was going to be and applied it. So before the factor, we picked up 5 million in value. Significant, much more than I expected. And personal property ended up being, it grew more than just the 9% that we were off by. So that was pretty positive. And our budget's up a bit. But with all that being said, I'll go down through all the numbers with you. But what you have in front of you is what we're coming up with 3 reasonable mill rate options.
I'll tell you where I'm headed, Rob, so
All right.
I don't have to really cover all 3. I think 15,650 is
Okay.
probably where we'll
Good.
we may start. So
All right.
right, Daryl.
I'm comfortable with that. Tom, if you got a chance to look at
So that way you don't have to sit here and explain every single one.
Kind of,
Perfect.
kind of in the middle of the,
Where's it on?
all right.
It's highlighted in the.
That'd be the
Oh,
mill rate.
Okay.
The biggest difference you're gonna get between the three, I think, is the overlay, right?
Correct.
Overlay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
And that's, that 1565 represents a full mill drop from last year, and the overlay was within $4,000, so. That's what we,
Yeah,
that's what we kind of
that
get.
seems like a comfortable,
Yeah.
comfortable area. So did you have any thoughts on?
No, I mean, with the overlay, I mean, a lot of times we think of the overlay as a, in some regard, as a way to float any kind of abatement and supplement and changes that we didn't know, mostly in the abatement.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you can use it as a kind of a cash flow purpose. We're not trying to use our overlay for cash flow purposes. We have a healthy fund balance and cash flow. So it's really, just kind of a much smaller number is needed for us.
Yeah, it seems like a comfortable number. It's not
Usually we're
too low.
fluctuate. We've gone from 25,000 to 100,000.
Yeah, you've had it high
We had
before.
it really high for a couple of years when I
Yeah.
first started.
And a lot of times it depends on what your budget's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, from my experiences, if you can keep a flat mill rate and then your overlay is more than your typical, I think the taxpayer likes that, because that gives you, once you raise that overlay amount, we all know this, but we can't spend it without taxpayer approval.
Mhm.
And once it's raised, we never have to raise it again. So it's always sits there.
Mhm.
And some of my other clients will do that. And then year number 3, they can decide the budget time to take some of that overlay money to keep the mill rate the same for 3 years in a row. And that's really appreciated by the taxpayers. They don't like that going down 25 cents only to go up 50 cents the
Right.
next year.
Right, yeah.
Consistency
you're going
is
up and down,
king.
up and
Yep.
down. Yeah, yeah.
And on a year that you have a big increase, I just got a text, one of my other clients went up over 2 mils this year. Their overlay is minuscule, just to help tether that increase of burden.
No,
So it all depends on, but when everything's like it is now, it's a typical increase. Most of my towns are getting between 6, 10, little, maybe 11% increase of net to be raised over last year. I think we're at 7. That's right in the ballpark with everything that's going on around us. So,
So, but using the 19% change in our mill rate is dropping. Your property is going to be assessed at a higher value, so your property taxes, even though the mill rate is going to be less, you're going to be paying more taxes.
the moving the needle, that 19% for everybody really doesn't change much in the tax burden. It's the increase in the budget.
Right.
They would have seen it either way. The taxpayer would see that either way.
Yeah.
But this enables us to fully give
Right.
the homestead. things
Some
like
some
that.
may get covered by
Right.
your homestead reimbursement.
That's right.
Yeah.
And anybody who's in this the 1-year tax stabilization program, they won't have to worry about any increase that they have for this year. So.
And
Hmm.
if we ever get
Sounds good.
reimbursed for it.
if the
That's-
state figures that out, right?
Another good reason to have an overlay like it is, because you just don't.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Looks like they're going to, every indicate leads to 100% reimbursement, but I've not seen it in writing yet.
Yeah,
But most of my commitments I've done the last couple of weeks, we're hedging on the fact that we will get 100%.
we're all hoping.
Yeah.
I won't hold my breath, but we're hoping anyway, so. Awesome. Anything else, Rob?
Yeah,
Anything-
just a couple
Yeah.
of quick things. So one thing that the mill rate sheet that you have in front of you is something that I've created because we have to take care of the
Mhm.
TIF properly,
Mhm.
Which is what this does. Also, I printed off just one copy of the Trio, our software vendor's mill rate calculation sheet. Everything's the same. They have an update that hasn't been put out yet where the state has been increasing the amount of homestead reimbursement we get back. We give the taxpayers what as much as we can. Last year, we got back 73% of what we gave out. This year it's 76. They haven't updated their software yet. So in our vendor, our overlay is 11,200, but it's not a problem because these are the committed numbers. This is the right number. This is what you'd be voting on tonight.
Okay.
When the software gets their update done, Andy will bring you in some proper commitment papers to sign.
Mhm.
But the vote tonight would give you commitment date today, mill rate today, overlay today, and that will cover you. All my towns are doing that.
Yeah. gotcha.
Update won't come in for another couple
Waiting
weeks,
for the update
maybe.
for the,
right? That was the only other little wrinkle.
fair enough. Any questions for Rob? Right?
Well, I'm moving to
I'm
set the
good.
rate. What was it? 15.65.
Yeah, okay, so are you making a motion now under,
The motion for the 15.65 is the mill rate.
okay, I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, motion carries. We'll set the mill rate at 15.65. Oh,
So, Rob, we talked about, I know probably at some point this is gonna come back up, just, I don't wanna get too far into this, but
Mhm.
looking at some of the non-taxable properties, about looking at taxing as open space. I think that we may start thinking about that in our goals.
Okay,
So I just want to give you a heads up that at that point, we may try to,
I think I saw that updated on your goal list there too. Is whenever.
Yeah, I think
So I think we, yeah,
the overall goal it talked about, I think, looking at all tax exempt.
looking at everything. Yeah, looking at. different-
And there's different
different,
reasons, right? Some properties are tax exempt, and so the open space is typically reserved for, just open land.
Mhm.
Some might find themselves in tree growth or farmland.
Yeah.
But if you're an entity that, has a building, we got, hospitals or some housing entities that are tax exempt, and we got a bunch of them that those wouldn't be taxed as open space,
Right.
right?
right, but I'm talking
Kinda
about
looking
some
at-
of these larger parcels that are
Right.
just
right.
idle.
Right.
Yeah, and looking at that, the non-taxable entities and
Yeah.
like we talked about in general as well, but specifically.
They,
there's
they
some-
must
yeah.
meet certain requirements anyway
They have
to
to,
do that.
they have to, that's right. And it's our, just really quickly, that's gonna be a hard battle because a handful of years ago, one of the nonprofit land trusts took the town to court for exempt status or not exempt status.
Hmm.
And didn't change the statute, but that court ruled that they should be exempt. So that's, we can talk about how we want to approach that.
Mhm.
It's a little damning, to be honest with you. What I would suggest as an alternative, it kind of will take all the open space exempt land and group it in with all the other exempts. The payment in lieu of taxes statute had some real good teeth put into it a couple of years ago, where we can ask everybody to enter into a pilot. Whatever that number is,
Yeah.
if
Right.
everybody agrees, you have an agreement in writing. If you don't, you can strongly encourage them, because you actually can put them in a pilot program
Mhm.
and expect a tax based on just the municipal side of the budget. And I can't say it's actually taxed that way, but, and I don't like to use this word, but the way the statute reads, you can force them into paying you a pilot. They enter into agreement, it can be whatever number the town is happy with. But if they don't agree with you, you can send them a bill based on municipal services. And the law will back us up. So
So I mean.
when we have a
that-
meeting like that, I would suggest kind of leaning that way.
Yeah, we want to try to do something to that effect. So,
Because we are a service center here.
Yeah.
And we do have a lot more exempts than most. So,
Yeah, well, we're a service center and we have a very small tax base that's footing the bill. So we just, we want to look into different,
Avenues.
what the avenues are but we don't want to go into it, in a forceful manner. We want to work with the
Right.
entities and so we can make, but on your end, we just need to, I think Josh's point, we need to understand a little bit more what the options are and
Yep,
this
sure.
pilot's been talked about quite a bit and that seems like a good angle to go to look into and, reasonably anyway. So
right. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that would be
well,
the better way to
I
go.
think so.
to me,
But yeah, it's sometime when things slow down a little bit in the fall,
Yeah.
winter. I'd
Yeah.
be more than happy to come down and
well, we're going to discuss it a little bit more. We've got our workshop coming up again next meeting. I think we've got a
Hopefully.
preliminary one. Yeah, as long as everybody's
Month
here.
into the new fiscal
So
year.
I'm,
I know.
this is gonna be
Fix
on
it.
our goals.
But it's
Yeah.
part of our
Okay, good.
goals, yeah.
So,
So
sounds good.
we'll lean on you probably a little bit more then. So,
No
yeah,
problem.
awesome.
all right.
All right. Anything else, Rob? You
Um,
good?
Andy had something to do with was that later in the meeting, stabilization?
I just given an update in my, if you want to follow up, it was just a quick update in my manager's report and I gave you a printout just from the state's
okay.
website.
Now you might as well do it while I'm here.
Yeah, we had someone come in and ask for the application as they would be due December 1st based on the previous law. But the legislature this year had a bunch of different laws, ways to fix some of the challenges that were identified with the law that went in place. And so they just have a quick update on the state website.
Okay.
And I'll let you explain what the options are, what the state's pushing for options now.
Looks like the stabilization program is sundown on that program will be this fall. It's going to be a 1-year stabilization. It was a very poorly written law that kind of got thrown in. Nobody understood what it was. And we've seen the trying to wrangle with it, trying to fix it. And they put together like $30 million to cover it. That's why I'm thinking we're going to get 100%. But sundown with that, they went ahead and enhanced the requirements, increased the thresholds for the property tax fairness credit. You guys have been around long enough. It used to be the old property tax and rent refund. You could get, if your income was under a certain amount, you can get up to, I think it was $1,200 back on your state income taxes and income tax credit. And there were income requirements. The income requirements are being vastly increased. And it looks like maybe up to $2,000 coming back. You pay your tax to us like you normally would. And then when you file your state income tax, you then ask for that credit. So they're funding that. And then there's a tax deferral program. And I think we have 3 or 4 people in town right now that participate in that program. You meet the requirements. There's an age requirement, an income requirement, and a liquid asset requirement. If you meet all those, the state will pay your taxes for you. It's like a lifetime loan. They'll pay them every year until you sell your home, pass, or lose your homestead status. At that point, the state will ask that it gets paid back all of his taxes plus interest. And the interest is set at the same interest rate that we set for our non-payment of taxes, which this year's 8%. So it's fairly anonymous. We have to put in the commitment book for the state's records, who is in, who isn't. And once they're in, they don't have to apply again. And we'll notified when they start no longer qualify, and then it's settled up with the state. So they're really funneling everybody to those 2 programs, because that really is dealing with need-based taxpayers. The homestead program, this stabilization program, there was no income requirement to it. And I think part of the argument with the state with, even though you're helping the people who need the help, you're also benefiting people who don't really need the help. And it was really, the intent of that was to help the people who really struggle paying their annual taxes. So I think this program is going to be a lot better vehicle going forward. And this has only come down in the last week. I have some information that a couple of the cities, Southern Maine, put out, like a little press release. And I talked about having it at the counter when people come in to ask for that program. Hand them that press release, and then maybe everybody who applied for and was approved for this program last year will send a letter to them saying that how it's being ended. I mean, it's all about PR. We're going to be the ones that people come in and may be upset about, and but it's just part of the job. But if we let them be aware ahead of time, they won't worry and wonder as much. So
Amazing they roll these programs out because before they're ready, they sound good, and then they have to, pass laws to fix the laws.
yes, pass it off. And then
Yeah.
right. The only good thing about it, and this will be the last for me, is it was only a 1 year. So unfortunately, the people who won't qualify next year, they'll get a 2-year tax burden increase at once. If this dragged out for 4 or 5 years, they'd have a 4 or 5 year tax increase. You could be talking 20%, 25% in 1 year. That be very painful. So I think that's one of the reasons why they hurried it along and change it. So.
Okay. Thank you, Rob.
All right.
Thank you, Rob.
You bet.
Cool. All right.
Well, I'll be in one day next week with Tara, and we'll get the tax bills out to the printers. They should be to the printers by the end of next week.
Awesome.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Rob. Good night. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the assessors
I'll
meeting.
make a motion to adjourn assessors.
Tom seconds. Discussion. All those in favor? Okay, so adjourn. All right, with that, I'll open the July 19th, the Town of Damariscotta Select Board meeting. I'll call to order. couple of quick things. We do have an addition, if it pleases the board, on official action items. We had a catering application come in, so we can add that on to the official
Add it.
action items.
Add it.
And then we're gonna we'll table the minutes of July 5th because you weren't here, so you're gonna have to abstain from anyway, so that's good. So we can move right into financials. All right, so I think everybody's seen the,
I'll move payroll warrant number 2.
all right, I'll second. Any discussion? Those in favor? All right, payroll number 2. We have AP number 62. I'll move AP 62. I have a second.
Second.
Tom's gonna second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All right, motion carries. And then we have accounts payable number 3, right? That's the FY 24. So I'll move accounts payable number 3.
Second.
And Tom seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, I can get the bills paid. All right. Do we have any citizens, anything come in on citizens comments, snail mail, anything you got to report? Nothing exciting?
Nothing I'm recalling.
All right, I don't see anybody on the board and anybody in the audience. No, okay, we'll keep moving along. All right. Town managers report. You ready?
Sure.
All right.
The Miles Street invoice is still outstanding for those change orders. There's no lingering projects there. It just impacts our ability to talk about phase 2. I know the hospital's reached out and is interested in talking about what it looks like to try and start phase 2. I mean, we were
Mhm.
close last year, but just didn't have the funds, and I had told Brooks, I said, neither of us are going to know exactly where we sit after the phase 1 until we get that invoice. So just waiting on that. Egypt and Belvedere roads are still outstanding for the shoulder work. We've been working with the engineer and the contractor. Trying to set a meeting up now for next week.
Okay, for
Our
next week.
engineer
Yep.
had sent an email explaining our position after getting an estimate to complete both roads for shoulder work, and we're just trying to work through those difference of opinions in the specs. So our meetings, we're trying to get that for next week to sit with the contractor and work through that and see if we can get to an understanding and agreement on
Can
that.
I talk to that real quick?
Mhm.
That's pretty straightforward in that bid spec in the language. So I'm trying to figure out why we're having this hiccup when we should not be having this hiccup.
Right. So what's clear in the bid spec is, in our opinion, the reclaim sections show a shimmed 2-foot shoulder to the surface of the asphalt that was laid. On the sections that were not reclaimed, we have our difference of opinion, I think, on the part that wasn't milled. And we do acknowledge that there were areas of the road that were not reclaimed that had
Which-
deeper than 2 inches.
Which we
of
knew going
exposed.
into it.
Right. And
Which
so.
was supposed to be negotiated.
Right, so we're trying to get, before we go out and just say, do it, an estimate of the cost and the amount of material needed. And what we got back as an estimate to do that was a pretty wide gap from what we thought it would be, and included estimates for the reclaim section, which we're
Not supposed to be
Maybe
responsible.
there's some room in the truck tickets. Do we get the truck tickets?
we need to get all that stuff still.
So there might be room in there.
There could be. But big thing is, there's a meeting we're trying to schedule for next week, early next week, with the engineer, myself and the contractor. Have kept Daryl in the loop on it
Yeah.
if he wants to attend that on behalf of the board.
Brief the
Well, I
board.
mean,
and where we're at.
I would say that the truck tickets are a critical path to negotiating.
Part of it, yeah, it's part of the equation.
And I
The
wouldn't-
truck tickets reflect tonnage used, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of other
But
components that would have cost centers and costs.
I know that, but if there's, excess there, you can
Correct.
use the funding. But
Yeah.
if you don't know what it is, how are you going to come to an agreement?
Correct. I will say we are asking for that still.
Okay.
Yes.
And delineators on the shoulders that were required by the spec have not been placed yet. And I understand that we're asking them to be placed. And what is our timeline for making that safer?
I don't have a timeline right now on when it'll get done. it's in the bid spec to be done. We asked back Memorial Day weekend to at least place cones at that time, where it was bad, and nothing's been placed different from that. And I think probably some of the cones, if they're even still there.
Yeah, it was last,
standing.
yeah,
But
and on both, yeah, this is in Egypt and.
at the time, I didn't
Yeah.
expect it to be almost 2 months later.
Right.
So
Right.
it should have been, it's on them to put the delineators out there.
And I will stress that each project was supposed to be 8 weeks. And there'd be a $500 a day penalty from there.
Mhm.
So. We're approaching a lot further out than 8 weeks.
Mhm.
So,
In the email we sent, the engineer sent, I had suggested that at least in regards to the shoulder material getting placed, 3 weeks from the date we do agree on what it's to be. With the idea that we agree soon. So that's what I'd put out there, just try and make sure that the contractors knows that we're looking for a definitive time to get this done and not dragged out till October.
I mean, the paving was done the week prior to Memorial Day.
Right.
On Egypt Road.
Egypt, yeah.
So, and we're still sitting with those drop off shoulders.
Mhm.
And I'm getting a lot of concerned individuals out that way and hearing from a lot. So I'd like to get that straightened out, especially if the bid spec said what was pretty well straightforward. I also have some reservations moving forward with Hodgson Street that we make sure that the pre-construction meeting for that moving forward is gone over and agreed to what our expectations of a bid spec and what the spec of so we don't run into these issues down the road. Because it's pretty obvious that every project that we keep continuing to have with this contractor has not been working out.
Does the Public Works Committee get involved in looking at those?
What, the bid specs?
Yeah.
We usually used to, yeah. I mean, those have been out for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I think, moving forward, I mean, it's, hard lessons learned sometimes, but we all need to make sure that, yeah, if there's any misinterpretations on, it needs to be hammered out beforehand. I think we all can agree on, we look over a contractor bid specs that if the contractor, the engineer, or a representative from the town, if there's 2 or 3 ways to interpret something, and I'm not saying that's the case here, but we have, to your point, we need to make sure everything is interpreted the same, going into this stuff.
From day one.
Yeah, I think we're all where there's gonna be change work orders and overages and things like that. It happens within reason, but the
Mhm.
interpretation is how, as long as we're all on the same page, we know, like, okay, this is how the contract reads and this is what we understand, and going forward to that. So it may take more before the projects get started, it might be, we might have heavier conversations before instead of doing it throughout, but we gotta
But isn't it?
kind of feel it out.
I'm not familiar with this, so I'm still gonna ask the question, but what's the purpose of the Public Works Committee if they don't review big projects like this in advance?
They did for Egypt and
We
Belvedere.
did for Egypt
Okay,
and Belvedere, and we
But you
looked,
said you used to, so are you saying?
well, we haven't had many projects
All right, so
going,
you're gonna
going
do
up.
it, so you'll do it going forward is what you're saying?
That's what the
Okay.
committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, but everything like the Hodgson Street one was pretty much done and we followed up through, so.
But you also, I think, I can't speak for the Public Works Committee because you're on it, but part of that too is you're taking information in from the engineer or the contractor, and it kind of gets disseminated through there. So they're not an end all be all, and
Right, but-
for that matter, but it's an area for,
Another independent oversight.
yeah, information get disseminated and we can work through that stuff there, but
Yes,
And then, and I guess another thing is if there are change orders, there need to be associated estimated cost with the change orders for any progress in the work at hand.
Yeah.
If a contractor can't give us a estimated change order, then the project's gonna be on hold until they can give us an estimated change order. We're not gonna have a blanket, open-ended thing that we're gonna worry about it later. We need on budget, on task and on target,
Well, that's where we need to have a conversation still about that, because, if we meet every 2 weeks and the board needs to approve the change orders, that means during a project, you might be asked to be multiple times a week potentially.
Well, and
Or have the
I-
contractor be ready to wait for that period of time too.
What I guess what I'm saying is if we move forward and we have a change order, we ought to have an associated cost from the contractor before we proceed.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that we have to approve
we're
it.
not suggesting approval. on
We're not
board.
saying that we need to
Oh, but the
approve it. I'm
representative from
saying
the
that
town
there
does.
need, as
Yeah.
far as the town goes, there needs to be a number that is associated with that change order,
Mhm.
whether or not it works within the budget of the project or not. And then if there's an
So we-
emergency, then we'd have to meet, but
Right.
as far as moving and evolving within the project budgeted number, then that's
Mhm.
It's a reasonable
It's
expectation.
obvious, but it should be in writing, right?
right.
It's a reasonable expectation that whoever is going to be, signing off on those, in this case, it's gonna be, it's gonna be you, so three of the bus, but having at least a ballpark, and I talked about having at
Right.
least an idea what we're getting into. I mean, and things happen,
Mhm.
you have to pivot, in the middle of a job and whatnot. Sometimes it happens, and we've seen that on Mile Street with those, you run into some stuff that was
The
there,
only-
it isn't, but.
The only change order through the projects we've done this summer that didn't have an estimated cost ahead of time was that culvert change on Mile Street.
Well,
Everything else was at least discussed in the field and had an estimate, and I worked within the
Mhm.
Yeah.
monies we had approved from the bond expenditure and whatnot, and that one is the only one that we didn't, because it was a total different
right.
animal when they got in there and saw what the
Yeah.
utility lines were, and it had
Yeah,
a very different
yeah.
design than when we didn't have a plan A and plan B design. In hindsight, all we can say is, it's always 2020. We could have said, oh, well, maybe we should have accounted for that, and we didn't.
And I remember we had an emergency meeting on the shoulder work and
Okay.
stuff, on the paving of Egypt Road
For the mill, yeah.
for the milling, and we talked about the shoulder work there and
Mhm.
I thought as a board member it would be taken care of from there, and we wouldn't be sitting here tonight talking about it.
Yes, and the information, yeah, we want to make sure that, you're satisfied with making those decisions and have the information you need, and the engineer has the information and stuff, so. Lots of
mean-
lesson learned for all of us.
I mean, to get it done, completed at this point, I mean, we come to an agreement with the contractor to get it done within the budget. If we disagree, if both parties disagree, you can either go to mediation and solve it that way. The engineer said you could also potentially withhold the retainage and, do it
Hire another
separately and still
contractor.
go through the process to navigate
Yeah,
with the contractor that had the bid. So we'll start with the meeting. We'll continue the process and
Yeah,
have the meeting in person next week and.
Your meeting set up, Andy,
But-
let me know and,
But a project of this magnitude and the amount of money we're spending, it should be, and it was thought out
Mhm.
for 5 years or whatever, this should be taken care of,
Mhm.
should be easy. And it should be completed within the time frame. So
Should be, yes.
I'm good on that.
We'll
I'm
get
sorry-
there.
Sorry to delay us on that, but
no, that's fine. We all have questions on it, so no concerns, and
Right.
we'll get through it. We'll get the meeting set up and be optimistic.
The update on the parking lot project, the trustees met last week. There were additional questions from that meeting. I've been working with Max. Thank you, Max. To try and been primarily communicating to their attorney that represents them. And Max has mostly passed the questions on to EDA representatives, and they've come back with answers, and we've provided them, and there just continue to be more questions. So at this point, we're got a meeting tentatively scheduled for next week for that as well, with their attorney, with EDA's representatives, to hopefully finalize this. The major concern being, we've talked about as co-recipient, the application has co-applicant. There are distinctions between in the grant specific award, the paperwork in there and the conditions of that award between a co-applicant versus co-recipient. And so the liability, if you will, of taking on and signing on as the co-applicant, are they assuming anything financial or performance wise for the duration of the project, looking back on the stuff that's already been completed? And we're trying to share from EDA that EDA's made it clear that they're being added solely to take over ownership for maintenance and operation of that sewer line that was installed.
Yeah.
And,
Pretty clear.
we're being told by the representatives is this clean piece? But rightfully, they're asking the questions on the behalf of their organization to make sure. So if we can get this meeting with EDA representatives and hopefully get what we need finally in this meeting, I am recommending that you kind of give me the or a green light to have the engineers, because it doesn't seem to be a question from EDA at this point, how we solve the sanitary district's ownership piece. There's another way we can do it if we need to, but trying to preserve the timeline for a late fall bid, hopefully. But the
Mhm.
engineers need to be able to start. I've had them on hold. But now the EDA seems clear on moving forward, allowing us to move forward with the change of work. Having the engineers start that refine, they have to redesign some of those pieces by removing
Right.
components that EDA removed. So if you're okay with having me have them start that up again, so we can try and get that out to bid this fall.
Going out to bid in what, March of 22?
That's
We're
all
there.
behind us now.
We're there, right? We're there.
Yes, continue.
Great.
All ready for bid, March 22.
That's the longest paragraph you've had on that for a while, Andy, It's not.
It's frustrating,
Like a
we're
ball
trying
of
to make it
sand.
work.
Yeah. So no, it's hopefully we can get through the hiccups with the sanitary district and get them satisfied so we don't want to be in the sewer business and start
Right.
billing them. So yeah.
The other paragraph I think is new in there, I think, is there was one of the companies that has the deployable wall was
Mhm.
offering to come with segments of it and, provide a demo. And instead of it just being me and George and the engineer, and didn't know if the board wanted to participate in that, if it worked for them, to see what that deployable wall looks like.
Oh,
Hopefully the
I'd
fire
like to see it.
department, perhaps,
Yeah.
maybe we can just take a look at it.
You don't have a date yet.
I do not, I just wanted to see.
Yeah, I'd like to see it.
Just get a date,
Well,
yeah,
I'd
get
be-
it set up and
Yep.
put it out there. We'll see
Yeah, there was
who
a
can attend. Yeah.
lot of discussion about that wall.
Right.
Yeah.
I do not believe there's been any change in the engine company's position on that.
I would at least ask respectfully that all town staff be included in understanding what it is. All emergency responders understand what it is, because it's not something that would be only used for down there. I mean, if we've got a flood on another road or something that we need to block water, detour water, we'd be able to take these segments elsewhere. And so, in the interest of all working
Yeah, so
together
there's-
on this, I'd hope that there'd be a willingness to all
Church
see how it
Street,
works.
Church Street culvert, things like that with the church,
Right.
Yeah. So there's a deployable help.
Yep.
Oh.
I mean, when flooding and things happen in block roadways, we all tend to get together and help out. And I'd like to hope that we'd at least be interested to see how they're gonna, we might find that, maybe this isn't
So
gonna
do
work.
we take
Yeah.
it- do we take a section from the parking lot and then we keep running back and forth to Elm Street Plaza?
Well, so the nice thing about what we've been looking at, if you want to, if you entertain it, is they come in section, segments, I think 8 or 10 feet wide, and you literally kind of zipper them
Put
together.
them together and
Literally. They're all just a little bit different. And so they come in defined length, and they're basically in crates that you can pick up with forks and go. And so the idea is that we'd get these in a trailer, so they're easy to just take it and go. You put the crate down, at least the video we had looked at this particular one, you put the crate on the ground and you literally just walk out with it. Set it up.
Self-deploys
And
and
so you
shit.
don't have to have the whole 850 feet going every location. You can take crates at a time that are defined lengths and put it out and deploy it. And so it makes it very transportable in that way.
Huh.
Depends on which, exactly which model or which kind of solution we go with. Again, there's some different companies with different, right.
Carries,
Yeah.
so water picks it up as it carries
The
it.
I think the one that we've looked at, or the one that they had and that we'd be asking them to bring wouldn't have like a floating aspect to it. It's got, 2 or I think 3 feet. It's as high, the piece parallel to the ground is as long as it is high
Yeah.
at a minimum. And so the idea is as the water kind of comes up along that, there's just enough pressure on that it's not going to flip in theory. That's where it's like, let's see what this looks like.
Yeah, they presented, this is, back 2 years ago.
Might have been longer than that, 3 years.
Yeah, we had to look at some of those
Points.
options with
Right.
Wright Pierce, and then the one I recall was just like, it was almost like a wedge shape, and
Right.
so the water would come in, it would hold itself in place, and in theory and stuff,
Mhm.
but they were small enough to be manageable. So
Right.
you could, like you say, you could have, if you, a major event, you're going to land them all like, the river's coming over, they'd all be there. But if, situations where we've had some heavy flooding lately,
Mhm.
you wouldn't, you could possibly deploy them in different areas and keep the roads from washing out. So get it set up or something, whatever schedule works for the town, and just put it out there, and we'll see who can attend to take a look. So sounds good.
Great.
You know.
for Public Works, what do we got going? They've been trying to keep up on brush and trees. It's that time of year. We did have, I think they're mostly done. The same gentleman that usually comes and uses the sickle bar to hit the roadsides. The crew's was on Westview the other day. Today again. Just cutting back there. Just trying to chip away, no pun intended, at what we can. Starting.
Great job. I was gonna say something later, but I did a good job today.
Perfect. Some roads we can keep cutting back the 1 or 2 limbs that creep out each year, or the new one that creeps out. But at some point, some of the roads we do know that we just got to kind of push things back a little bit further than normal every few years. And so just kind of keeping an eye on that, taking inventory. I know they were doing a pretty good effort on Keene Woods last week to try and open that up again.
Nice.
With what we can use with the equipment we have. We're scheduled to have an excavator rented starting next week. And the idea is to put us on, and I want to see how we can trying to restore some of these ditches on some of the lower traveled roads. Branch Road in particular is one that we kind of keep tending to during bigger rain events, and most of those driveway culverts have failed. But try and stay away from opening up pavement if we can, and just kind of work within driveways and existing ditch lines. And just want to see how we can do with that. We also have a septic field at the garage that I'm hoping we can at least get the trees out of the way and get that cleaned up. So someone that can come in and prep that site and put the leach field in for that bathroom. So just trying to keep it trying to keep them out of the major roadways, but do some meaningful work on that. It would be cheaper.
Some of the smaller roads,
It's a bit of a test for me to see how we can do it. But
do we have the trailer back? Are we moving the machine with?
I've weekly checked in with the mechanic to make sure that gets fixed.
Okay.
And I did say that
We have an
it's
alternate.
scheduled to be here Monday, so we need something to move it with, and they said that it would be fixed.
Prepared to give us an alternate form of moving the machine for us if we don't have our equipment. Yeah.
So
Just
that's
checking.
for those that aren't, the wheel had fallen off on one of
A
the.
hub or a bearing or
Yeah,
something.
it was right after we finished getting the floats launched, luckily, so it didn't impact getting those out. But literally the trip back after we launched the last set of floats, the wheel had fallen off on Heater Road as they made the turn. So I think part of that, honestly, probably has a lot to do with the fact that to launch that pump out barge, that trailer's in the water twice a
It's hard
year
on
to
them.
do that, and if we're not washing it down, I mean, it's just not meant to be in the salt environment. So I think there's other ways we can get that launched and out of the water. That doesn't involve putting the trailer in there. That I think we'll try and use going forward.
So did we get a
man.
ditching bucket for the excavator too?
So
Nice. Okay.
ordinance updates, and we can add to that perhaps a pilot ordinance. As Rob was talking earlier, I didn't have that in the list, but there's quite a few there. Some are in the works. Some need to be started to be talked about. Includes the business licensing, which we've been talking about for a little bit. Traffic and parking ordinance. I'd like to have that one in particular potentially drafted and up for consideration before winter. There's quite a bit of stuff in there that relate to winter operations, and seeing how it worked last year. I know there was some feedback about the parking lot, and as always, I mean, there's no good spot if you got to get out of the way and you're not able to do it. But trying to look at all things and talk to Jason about having one of our parking attendants or parking ambassadors that's working with us this summer to maybe be involved based on what they see in the summertime, just to help. Does this make sense? One of the ones we got last year we'd like to try and do is find a place for one, maybe 2 spots, probably one for oversized vehicles. If someone comes down with a flatbed truck or a bus, there's literally no designated places for them to be downtown without being in violation. So is there a place downtown? And we did try it last week with the bus that comes in and drops people off for the river cruise. There's 2 parallel spots to the river at the end of the guardrail closer to Water Street. And they fit them in over the last few years. And so kind of leveled it a little bit and put in some gravel and compacted it there because pavement was real broken up, and to just try it and see if it works. Still put them in the parking lot, didn't put them in a boater parking, didn't double park anywhere. And we just coned off those in that one spot at the end of the guardrail so they could make the swing. And from the perspective of the driver, it seemed to work fine. But if we could identify, I think, that's something I know that we want to try and provide. And if it's first come, first serve like the rest of it, so be it. But For an oversized vehicle, there's just nowhere for them to park without getting a ticket.
You start seeing quite a few, into the fall with the leaf tours.
Mhm.
I'll see, quite a few buses come in, those time you soon, we'll see more then. So, yeah, but it's something to consider anyway. So,
Can I ask a question? Who work, it says staff, but I mean,
Mhm.
shoreland zone and harbor ordinance and shellfish conservation. Are the committees associated with those group or the shellfish committee doing that? Is the harbor committee doing that? They are.
Yeah, the harbor committee's been working on changes for the harbor ordinance for a couple of years now, I believe, but Newcastle tends to take responsibility for the harbor ordinance. We take responsibility for this joint shellfish ordinance. So I know their attorneys reviewed some changes that have been proposed from the committee for the harbor ordinance, but nothing final has been ready for presentation yet. So I don't know actually where they sit with that. It's on the list to talk with their interim manager about to see
Yeah, would it be,
moving forward.
yeah, I told you I was interested in trying to help do that. I don't know if I can or not, but if I could participate or if I could review it or whatever, I'd like
Right.
to do that.
And then when it comes to the shoreline zone, land use, site plan, subdivision or involve planning board.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Again, our planner, probably our code officers to some degree.
Yeah.
The traffic and parking would be like me and the police chief primarily.
Yeah.
All of the traffic and parking one is one the board, if they so desire, can adopt on its own. Or you can put it out for town vote as you do the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, I read the harbor ordinance. And to me, it's way too general and I like to see some things in it. And I'm not sure everybody has that same perspective, but I don't know. How do I get involved in that? Do I just talk to Newcastle?
Yeah, the chair, who's the chair? Mike Hertz, I think, is the chair
Yeah,
of
you know, Mike.
yeah, I know him. Yeah.
Okay, I think he's the chair of the group, and I haven't connected with their interim manager about, kind of moving it forward or not. He's I'm talking with Sarah over the last year that they had been working on it.
I probably, Tom, if you have some proposed changes before we get it out to the committee, just run it through, because you're just representing the board. We want to make sure we're on the same page. So just get it out to the board first. We'll talk and then go from there. But yeah, where you're involved in it, it makes sense to keep you involved in it. So absolutely. But
That's a good point. I mean, as a reminder, ordinances can be revised based on a few different ways. The board can initiate the request to have it revised for something in particular. Citizens can bring a petition or a request or a petition to have an ordinance revised, or the committees that naturally would oversee them can say, hey, it's time to update this. So there's a few different ways it could start.
Yeah. We talked about the long range planning. One of my suggestions is that the Damariscotta River is our most important asset for the Solon community, and if that ever went south or was not as attractive, it would have a major impact on everything we do here as a service center. So it's really important that that river is preserved.
Annual work plan, if you will, or strategic goals. Gave an update on progress as I saw it in your packet. For the things we had from last year. And again, some of those we've been on there probably a few years now, and they just continue. Some are annual anyways, but some are initiatives that were identified a little while ago. So give an update on some of those. Don't intend to get into too much on your ideas for this year. Because we don't have, there's two members who aren't here.
Yeah,
yet,
we
but
won't
at
tonight
least,
where we're missing. We're absent two
did
members.
give you a
so.
worksheet similar to you had last year, just to prioritize 3 top goals. Could be the things that are on there that we still need to finish, could be something that's not on there, but give us a chance internally to talk about, here at this board, and then internally with how do we get it accomplished and, with staff, with outside partners, but if you can think about that, and if we can get it back by.
Yeah, you've attached select board, everybody's got this at the back of there.
Yeah.
So, and you like to have that back by the 27th, right?
If I could, then
Get it
give
for
me a
next
chance
meeting.
to try and put it in the
Yep.
format for the meeting, ahead of the meeting, and then we
fair
can
enough.
try and work through, kind of work through, more detailed objectives and how do I know we're working towards what
Yeah.
you want. If that works.
Was that for the next meeting? It's August.
If you can't read it, just call me.
Sure.
The date.
I have a
August
copy.
something.
Next meeting in August, the first meeting in August would be August 2nd.
Second, okay. Yeah, there's a second.
There's 5 Wednesdays in August, it looked like. So if there's you want to do it at a regular meeting, or if you wanted to try and take advantage of an extra week there and try and do a separate workshop, it's up to you, but you can at least start with that first one if I can get those back from everyone.
Yeah, we'll get with that, and I'll touch base with Dan and Andrea as well, just make sure they're on same page, so.
And I have been
Sounds
looking
good.
into different software options to help track track strategic plans and just work products in general. There's a bunch of different solutions out there with a range of price. This is just in an Excel spreadsheet. And that's suitable for certain aspects, but some of these get pretty fancy, and you can have public dashboards to be able to show the public either in the newsletter, on the website, how we're doing, and include them in the future, hopefully, on letting them measure and tell us how we're doing on those things. And I think thinking about when the comprehensive plan gets adopted, being able to put that plan in there so we can track progress on that too. So I'm just trying to get an idea of what's out there and what the cost, and maybe have something in next year's budget to consider to try and get something running before that gets adopted. When that gets approved, I'm assuming there's going to be a fair amount of objectives and goals to accomplish in that. So as there should.
For that workshop, could we add who the responsible party is to lead it, and also what the new estimated date is? Like we have some that are 25%, some are 50%. So we can project a new target date or something like that.
Yeah, I think, for the next meeting, identifying and prioritizing the goals from the board's perspective would be my objective. And then if there's timelines you want things met by, you tell me.
Well, I mean, part of that is the people doing the work have to sort of figure out how much, there's a lot of the same people
Right.
doing this work. So you have to figure out what the priorities, how many can you do by a certain date? And then you can come back and we could look at that and see if we think it was any
Mhm.
concern. But I think you guys, whoever's going to do this, ought to pick those dates first based on their capabilities.
That's fine. We just need to get the sheets back sooner, or we just give you talk about it on the 2nd, and then we can
Yeah.
come back again by the end of August and
Yeah,
give you that outlook.
And
if you
in
want.
between, the other thing too is we have this updated work plan ahead of us as well. So between now and the next meeting, if there's any, we can always reach out to you if we have any, I just changes. I know we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but to keep things flowing along. But we can always contact Andy and
Sure.
make a suggestion. But sometimes it's definitely a working document sometimes where things can change. I like the color coding.
I did print it in color. I think last time I've done it, I didn't have it in color. So
No, like, hey, yeah, look at that. I know the high priority. So yes, but it seems like a simple thing, but
Yeah, but
it's
there's a cost to that. The color ink is more expensive.
there is, yeah. So yeah, so okay. But it's it's gonna be nice to see some things checked off. There's gonna be some new stuff going on. Priority levels are gonna change a little bit.
Municipal parking lot still there.
It's still there.
Miles is checked off.
Yep, we're
I
getting
think I
there.
might have put on there the parking lot's probably more like a sometime in 2025 completion.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if I'll have any here.
I saw a low priority.
Still
Yeah. Oh,
That's all I
Okay.
had for Mike, because we covered the property
yeah,
tax.
we did the
thing.
property tax stabilization. So awesome. All right, you're not gonna sneak another one in? We're good? Okay. All right, well, we can move on to some official action items here, if we'd like. Start out, we do have a liquor license renewal for so there's 2, right? Yeah, let me see here if I can read them right.
Just the one.
Just the one. Was it 2 on there? Yeah, it's just for Best Tie.
I'll make
Oh,
a
sorry.
motion to approve the liquor license renewal for Best Tie.
I'll second.
Tom jumped right on that one.
Well, I go there. I go there. I like to-
Yeah, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, so it was Tom and Josh on that one, right?
And you got
Yeah, so.
the other add-on one too.
Yeah, we can either do that now or
Might as well just
while
do it.
we're getting along. So yeah, so this is a qualified catering organization application. So I will make a motion to approve a qualified catering organization application for a catered function for Seacoast Catering and Lobster Bakes. This will be at the CLC YMCA on the 12th of August from 5 to 7 p.m.
They do lobster bake on the pickleball court. or-
Not sure. So yeah. No.
You made the motion, I'll second.
You're gonna second? All right. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, catering is good to go.
Hey, send me some stuff to sign.
Well, I suppose we can start signing stuff down there.
Hogging it on you.
So.
Not a ball game tonight?
All right, so this one, next one on the agenda is a disposal of surplus property. This is a request from the Chamber of Commerce. Is this good? We have what they need? There's no problems? Put your hat on as the Public Works?
We have some old basins on the property at Public Works as a result of change orders or
Okay.
different designs that ended up happening from what was originally bid. There's some older ones that came out that are in decent shape that are shorter. I don't know exactly what they need. They just asked if they could,
Okay,
knowing we had some, if they could have one, and I just asked for them. This came up at the town meeting beforehand, but hadn't gotten the request until this week, so.
yeah,
I'll
so,
make a motion that we delegate to Andy to make a decision based on the equipment we have or the property we have as to donating it, if it's not necessary to the town otherwise.
is that fair enough? I'll second that.
We're
Or,
gonna get a discount, join in the chamber.
Yeah, 5 years.
yes, well, we didn't open up for,
Five-year
yes,
deal.
discussion. Are we getting the chamber?
About the value of those catch basins.
Yeah.
I'm just
So the motion was to give you,
throwing it out there.
We have a second.
ability to, I did second. Yeah, I did second. So I'll call for a vote on that. So all those in favor? All right. Yeah, if we've got something they can use, no problem with that. Oh, all right. That one down. That was Tom. Me. All right. What's the next here? We have the tax payment policy. This is pretty straightforward. Any questions on this one?
No.
Da-da-da. So I'll make a motion to approve a request of the tax collector to allow the town to apply any tax payment to the oldest unpaid tax bill pursuant to 36 MRSA section 906.
Second,
Josh has gone to second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, motion carries. We have an interlocal agreement between Newcastle and Damariscotta for the new town planner. Now, you weren't here at the last meeting. We,
it's not on the agenda.
but what's that?
It's not on the agenda.
Oh, it isn't on the agenda. That's right. Well, it's in here, okay?
I apologize. That might have just been a carry from the last one. I apologize. There was just a quick update on it, though. There was a minor addition or change to it. It was what they called a friendly change. And I remember what it was now. It wasn't substantial. They did want to look at remember what it was now. I think this is just a carryover on it, but if it's okay, I mean, I can send
Okay.
it to you just to see what it is. If it needs to come up at the next meeting, we can do it.
That's
But I
fine,
talked
that's fine.
with Kevin, their board approved it based on that minor change. And I just,
Yeah.
I think
Was it
So
a
we
change
approved
we asked
the-
for?
it wasn't. It was something that I didn't catch before. It didn't come up till after we approved it. I think it had something to do with if either town wanted to cancel or terminate the agreement, the way it was written. It didn't kind of give us the opportunity to renegotiate. It just automatically assumed we'd be kind of picking up the rest, but I'll send that to you, have it so you have it, but
Okay.
I didn't think it needed to have reapproved. I think this is just a carryover.
That was just I was thinking because we approved the appointment and then I'm trying to remember if we did the intro agreement at the same time, but we're good.
Apologies.
Okay. No problem. Hey, sneak an extra one in there on this one. So, all right. So we have the carry forward requests. So I think we've all got
I put it in an email.
no, that was we moved along. That was a extra.
I'd sent it just in an email, and this is just a nice kind of hopefully a nicer version of it, and it does show you what was budgeted in 23, what the estimated end of year balance is based on the warrant articles and how they were presented and voted on. So for general government, a $947,000 plus annual budget for FY23 with right now 113,000. A little more than 113,000 estimated to be unexpended. And we're asking for the consideration of 12,617,000 to be carried forward. Some for some payroll for select board minutes from last fiscal year. Some IT service for some computers we had purchased on the previous fiscal year. And then the bigger one there, the balance of what would be an upgrade to the fire and security system at the fire station, as well as a camera system, which would be new. You'll see in public safety, there's the other part of that. So the fire department has 7625 left, unspent as an estimate. So some would come from the fire department balance to be carried forward for that. The rest would come from contingency. And then in public works, 15,000 to be carried forward from the highway fund, 5,000 for bathroom and plumbing supplies. We'll use the reserve to pay for the cost of labor in actually the construction of those items. And then 10,000 is my estimate for, although it may be high, hopefully, but we haven't gotten a bill for any work done from one of the mechanics. And so trying to carry a balance. I've asked for it. We're working on it. Supposed to get it this week. So just in anticipation of that for FY23 repairs, if we can carry forward a balance, that'll allow us to pay for those. And then the cemetery had a few items that were either scheduled in the works or aren't quite complete from FY23 to carry forward.
Does that include compost bins?
Those I believe are paid. I'll ready on that. Last FY23.
I know, I'm just bringing it up.
Being
So
facetious down there.
The total carry forward request from FY23's budget unspent would be 41,940 and a penny.
So what if we don't give you the penny?
That's fine. We'll find it somewhere.
Yes.
We'll cut something out.
Already.
All right, so your carry forward, carry forward request is 40, get me now, 40 without the penny, 41.
No, I'm, that's
One. All right,
I'll make a motion to
Yeah.
approve the carry forward request of 41,940. Oh, one.
Second.
penny in there. Tom seconded?
John is here. I did ask him to come if he wanted to speak to any of it. I don't know if you have anything you wanted to.
Yeah, it's,
Share had
we can,
questions
we're in
on it.
discussion, so I'll allow it if you got anything, John, yeah.
I have spoken already, but John Roberts, here on behalf of the fire department tonight. So our security system is about the same age as the building, and requires the contractor, who right now is Cunningham Security, to make any changes for personnel or access or anything like that. And we deal with a lot of different security companies and going around different areas, and
Yes.
we feel a better fit for us is going to be Seacoast Security. And at the same time, the building's approaching 30 years old. The security system is approaching 30 years old. And there's some pieces that are not functioning properly that need attention, as well as updating to make it so that Seacoast would be able to administer the system for us, and then also allow us to be able to change access codes and everything directly. There's also a much higher amount of foot traffic coming through the parking area than there ever has been before. So the security system cameras would be mostly facing outward into the parking lot, so that we can have some sort of sense of security for our vehicles when we're there, responding to calls or training or whatnot.
What do you have for, what's the increase in foot traffic? From, is it? I mean,
Ship
what's-
station.
There's a lot of housing next to Floor Magic, and I
So
believe they
coming
use
through-
the driveway to get to Hannaford.
To Hannaford, okay, yeah, it's only because obviously it's not, you know,
There.
yeah.
There's kind of an informal
Interesting.
informal path that kind of cuts through the town property there. And it comes off
Snowmobile
Heater Road as
trail.
well. Yeah.
Snowmobile trail, yeah, but you're getting that. I was curious, you said, I didn't think of that with the folks cutting through and going over to,
It's significant, I would
Yeah.
say.
yeah, interesting on, yeah.
Um,
The system that's currently in there, I suspect beyond, it's just outdated. It's the parts and repairs must be, I mean, even if can they find anything for it when something does? I mean, you need to update because it's an old system, yeah. Yeah.
We need to spend money somewhere now.
Yeah.
On it.
Yeah.
And I talked to Andy, and it seemed like if we're going to be changing companies, it would make sense to upgrade the system now.
Yeah.
We had been talking about doing some minor changes to just make it so that the radio, because security systems have two ways of communication. They have the telephone, and then they have a radio system. So our radio system has been up and down for the last couple of years. Basically, my understanding is they form like a mesh network. So if this building has, let's say, Seacoast Security, this building has Seacoast Security, they all talk all the way back to each other. So when a security company doesn't have as successful market dominance in an area, then their radio system doesn't work well.
Gotcha. Oh, that's interesting.
Our antenna is also on an interior wall, and the building's basically mostly masonry.
Yeah, super. Yeah.
And so it's not getting good signal anyways. So
Yep.
there's some things that need to happen regardless, as well as the age of the system.
Sounds good.
So I get the price that, I don't know if you send it out or not, but it's included in your spreadsheet there. It ends up being about $17,500 or so for both systems.
Gotcha.
I did the math right somewhere handy that.
Yeah.
And Andy and I were talking right beforehand. I'm meeting with Jared tomorrow. Hoping that we get approval to carry for the funds and also to expend the funds on this. And someone will need to sign and to enter in the agreement. So it's 50% when is due around the signing time and 50% when the work's complete.
Okay.
So would be nice to come away from tonight with the ability for one of us to sign. I'm going to be with him
Yeah.
already, but if
Well, we can, we've got a motion on the table right now, so we'll finish up the carryover, and then we'll have to appoint somebody to sign. We can appoint in to sign on the behalf or whatever we need to. So, okay. So, all right. So I'll call for a vote on the motion on the table right now. It's been seconded as the 41-940-01. All those in favor? Okay, motion carries there. So that's good. And then, so as far as I'm trying to got to word it. So I make a motion to, Andy, you all set with signing in behalf? Yeah. So I'll make a motion for town manager Andrew Dorr to sign the paperwork and whatever he needs to expedite the fire department's request for the security system upgrades. I think that's all we need, right?
Yeah.
Is that good? All right.
Second.
Tom seconds. Any discussion? Those in favor? Okay. Do it. All right. I think that's it. Okay. Discussion items. Tom?
You have the strategic plan update. You just.
We did that. Yeah. So we're just
There's
gonna
something
go.
that jumps out in terms of progress. You have a question on, if you had a chance to look at it, you
Yeah.
can ask now, or we can
Yeah.
just.
Yeah, I'll pass it along to you. I got a
Something
few
more
things. So
Yeah,
I'll pass
we
it
can
on.
communicate beforehand in
Yeah.
between.
No, I just want to thank the town Public Works again for the work they did on Westview. They not only did a good job trimming the trees and overhanging limbs, but they didn't drop anything, and they're very good at catching all the debris as it came down, because I went down the street afterwards and it looked really good.
Nice.
It was a problem. I mean, they were hitting the trees, and two cars coming in opposite directions got a little tight. So it was a
Getting
good
a little tight
job.
now. Yeah, they're getting a lot done. So it's good to see. Yeah. Josh, you're gonna catch up for 3 or 4 meetings here.
No, I'm good. I had one thing I bring up usually every year is sandwich boards for advertising down on the sidewalks and inventory and on the sidewalks, and making sure that people know that the sidewalks need to be handicapped accessible, and try to keep things free and clear of that.
Yeah.
There's a couple areas down there that I think we probably need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I know we're on the bridge. It kind of gets sometimes. a little
It's
busy.
kind of, yeah, so it would be good if we could
Yeah.
try to monitor that, and maybe we need to put that in the parking and traffic or whatever ordinance.
We have,
Is there something in the
Sign, it's in the sign
sign
ordinance.
ordinance? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, something there, but we can revisit it. And yeah.
I'll mention to George.
Yeah.
It's starting to,
It's a similar situation with, sorry, I mean, you've got more to add.
if you don't want to claim it in the winter,
Yeah, with,
probably don't claim it in the summer.
yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. It's similar with winter stuff on the sidewalks. You know, we have to have something that covers the whole year. So, yeah.
It just reminded me of something about that, look or watch, wave or whatever, and walk. I almost hit 2 people. One guy was caught crossing when not even looking, where there was no crosswalk. He was coming from the halls across the street directly.
Yeah.
And then there was a car coming this way at the bookstore crossing. And I'm going this way, and she was in the back of the car, walking behind the car that was coming this way, and I couldn't see her.
Came out.
She got out right in front of me. And
Yeah.
I don't know, anything we can do to slow them down would be good.
They are using the crosswalk primarily.
That one was using the
Okay,
crosswalk. Yeah.
But that then it's important to make eye contact, with the driver,
Yeah,
because you
yeah.
can come in between vehicles, whatnot. I'll to expand on that, Tom. Yeah, it's been super busy downtown and there's a lot of folks walking around and,
Sure.
fortunately, traffic congestion slows it down a little bit to a crawl, but there's a lot of potentials. I think there was a couple down bang ups downtown today. Two different spots. Yeah. Yeah. So it's busy down there. It gets congested. So
I did
watch
get
out. Yeah.
I did get a call
Yeah.
last week. I think it was a voicemail relation to crosswalks and the request, and I haven't followed up and didn't necessarily ask for a follow-up, but the request came from someone to ask if we've ever considered synchronizing the crosswalks so that you don't stop, that one car might not have to stop every time. And that's something I could think of when they mentioned synchronizing them so that, it can be hard and take a while to get through Main Street sometimes, but if, think of it just a
Mhm.
pedestrian activated light and they wait for the light to signal when they can go.
Oh, okay.
And if they were
Yeah.
synchronized all at the same time, at least traffic could then have a break to kind of
Yeah.
pass through again.
I don't see it being that much of an issue that we would need to put in.
Yeah, I can
Crossing lights
tolerate
and
the
stuff,
traffic.
it's-
It's a pain, but
Yeah.
we don't want to hit somebody.
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, naturally this time of year, it slows down. I mean, you're not doing 25 miles an hour
Yeah.
from town. So you're crawling along at 5-10 miles an hour at the most, maybe. So it's kind of a natural that, yeah. And then it sorts itself out the rest of the year. Well, you had one more?
Just want to thank the board for letting me coach my son's baseball teams this year and being patient with me when I'm not here, and that we've advanced. The Lincoln County All-Star team has advanced to the state tournament against 6 teams in the state are left. So we start that this weekend.
No, that's pretty awesome. So,
Cool.
no, we toyed with the idea. We were gonna,
Hey.
checking on excused absences last time,
We
but
passed a lot of stuff. I knew you wouldn't approve it.
Yeah, that's all right.
I mean, the reality is, and Josh brings up a good point. I mean, we can point towards, we've got the fire chief in the room here. I'll use you as an example of how many different hats you wear. And everybody wears, they're also, you guys also have families. And I think everybody in town appreciates that when you got to step away and do something that's family oriented, I think it's an understanding that that's okay sometimes. I'm not gonna balk at it too much.
Oh, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, unless you're not shirking your duties. So cool. I'm not gonna add anything. I've talked enough. Oh, if we're good, we've got some stuff to sign, but I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Josh made a motion. Tom seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, we are so adjourned.